The Nova Scotia School Athletic Federation says time's up for high school rugby. The season is now scrapped, despite pleas from athletes to let them play. Rob Pizzo here to break down the story for us. So, Rob, often we hear talk about encouraging kids to get active, get out there. What is behind this decision to cancel rugby for these students?
Basically, it comes down to safety and injuries and some numbers that the Federation just did not like. They requested these numbers over a 5-year span, and they said we wanted to find out exactly what the injuries are and how often they're being sustained, and specifically in dealing with concussions. And when they got the numbers back, like I said, they weren't happy with it. If you look at both categories, rugby led the way. Concussions, 149 cases of concussions in rugby, 33 in hockey, 32 in football, 26 in soccer, and the same sort of order when you're talking about just total injuries. And when they saw that, they came to the conclusion that rugby is a safety issue and they don't want to put their players in situations where they could continue to suffer concussions. I should mention, the study was missing a lot of information. How many athletes played? How many games were played? Obviously, you're talking about whether a concussion was diagnosed, undiagnosed, how it happened. So there are a lot of question marks when it comes to this study, but the Federation said, you know what, we don't like seeing this. We don't like to continue to put our athletes in a situation where they can get hurt. And they scrapped the program altogether.
You know, it's an interesting move. What's the reaction been?
Not good. And I understand why. Athletes, coaches, parents, all of them saying, let them play. There's a petition being circulated that's got over 10,000 signatures already saying, let them play. One parent said, I don't want to have to wrap my child in bubble wrap. It's a physical sport. Injuries are going to happen. Now, a lot of these complaints have been going to the Rugby Nova Scotia president, Gino Carew. Let's hear from him.
Everyone's a little disheartened, I guess, would be a good way to put it, and upset with the decision, and kind of want to know more around what's driving the decision that's been made. I don't think that rugby is any riskier than any other sport that involves contact, and accidents can always tragically occur, and they have. And but again, it's about evaluating that risk and taking steps to mitigate it wherever possible.
The other question is, you know, where did this come from as far as timing goes? Because a lot of these athletes, coaches, and parents, they feel blindsided. They literally went to bed one night with a rugby program. The next day they're told, you're not playing rugby anymore. They have requested a meeting with the Federation just to maybe get a little bit of background as to why this decision was made. But something tells me the story is not going away.
No, and it seems like a rabbit hole. If you start with rugby, I mean, you know, like you're
exactly.
saying,
Any sport that has physical contact
Yeah.
has an opportunity for injuries, specifically concussions. Where is this going to end?
Okay, thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
My next guest calls this decision nuts. Jack Manratty is the acting technical director for Rugby Nova Scotia. He's also the coach for the under-20 women's national rugby team. We reached him in Victoria. The team is there for a selection camp. So, Jack, how shocked were you by this move?
Yeah, thank you for the intro of nuts. Yeah, I guess it was a big shock to us and to the rugby community. I was at on a training session at the time and just happened to look at the time on my phone, and suddenly 42 missed calls meant that some tragedy had happened, and that's exactly what did happen.
A tragedy, wow. You know, you're there in Victoria. You have a few players from Nova Scotia on your team there. So what are they saying?
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that hit me originally, not only thinking about the wonderful high school athletes that we have back in Nova Scotia, but we have 3 fantastic female athletes that are here, that are from Nova Scotia, all of whom have represented Nova Scotia, but all of whom were identified at high school level. All of these 3 athletes are also playing varsity rugby. They're getting some scholarships towards that, and one of them came over to me and just said, where would I have been seen? And that was I think that was a real moment where it hit home for me.
I just want to go back to a word you used. You said tragedy. Can you explain that more for me? Why?
Yeah, I mean, I have one of the best jobs in the world. I get to work with some of the most incredible athletes around the country, but primarily my base in Nova Scotia. These athletes don't just learn technical skills about rugby. They learn a lot about the values of the game. A lot of these athletes came to the game quite late, and when we say quite late, we mean 16, 17. And it's one of those last sports that you'll have an opportunity to see, is this my sport? And rugby, as a lot of people know, it's all It's for all shapes and sizes. And to take that away from people, from high school students, to express themselves, in my opinion, I think that's a real tragedy.
And, a lot of people talking about the reasoning here, and I don't know how much you know about the statement put out by the Nova Scotia School Athletic Federation, but I'm just going to read a little bit to you where it says, after a thorough review of incident report data provided by the school insurance program, the board has decided to take this action. Student safety remains the top priority of the Federation. What does that tell you about how they came to this decision?
Well, first of all, student safety and athlete safety is at the forefront of Rugby Canada, Rugby Nova Scotia, and World Rugby. We understand that we're a contact sport. There's a lot of contact sports out there. The one thing that I'm really proud about to our membership is that we haven't hid away from these issues. What we've made sure is we put it on the forefront. If a player has an injury of any sort, or is even not feeling okay in any way, we want them to make sure that they are comfortable in coming to us. We were in contact with the High School Federation 2 years ago. We sat around a round table and we came up with a plan of action to try and make our game safer. In those 2 years, I think, if anything, we have certainly got coaches and players, referees and supporters to make sure that the contact element is there and to make sure that everyone is comfortable in recognising and removing any injury. The one issue that we have from a Rugby Nova Scotia point of view is we haven't been brought to the table here again. These memos went out and we heard them at secondhand information. We wouldn't come and try and stop any research from being done. What we think we could do is bring more research. We just don't want to take a sporting opportunity away from these players.
In talking about the research, though, stats do show that concussions or possible concussions have occurred in rugby more than 4 times as much as either hockey or football. How do you square that up?
Is this in the insurance research published by the NSSAF?
That's right.
Yeah, I would love to see that data. We have other data as well. And the other thing that it doesn't take into account is the amount of games, the amount of athletes. One point that you've got to say that is from a women's point of view, the women's game is the only female contact sport available in Nova Scotia High School Athletic Federation, and suddenly now it's not available anymore. Again, I don't doubt any statistics that are being done, but I'd like to see exactly where that research came from, exactly what study is, because I know one thing I'm very proud about is that our coaches and our players have made sure that they are recognising, removing, and not pretending that that contact does not happen in our sport.
All right, we really appreciate your opinion on this and your insight. Thank you so much, Jack.
Thanks for having me.
Jack Manratty is the acting technical director for Rugby Nova Scotia. He's also the coach for the under-20 women's national rugby team.